Coming up, it's just become easier for you to buy an airplane. Sometimes there's a serious purpose to fun and games. Rod Machado on surviving a crash, and 5 more stupid things pilots do to sabotage their medicals. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment. Aircraft and avionics financing has just gotten easier. Hello everyone, I'm Tom Haynes. Thanks for watching AOPA Live this week. If you've tried to find a loan for a used aircraft or an avionics upgrade or an engine overhaul, you know it's pretty darn hard to do. But the new AOPA Aviation Finance Company aims to change all of that. It will give pilots more financing choices and better service.
AOPA has, for over 2 decades, has been working with one individual lending institution, and we are now going to be working with a syndicate of banks that will make it more attainable for our members and make it more accessible by having a number of institutions.
And why is having more bank choices better for pilots?
What this group will bring to the marketplace is not a one-size-fits-all, but it's going to bring in a group of lenders who have specialty appetites, and they're going to be able to fulfill the needs of the AOPA membership in a really good way. And the AOPA membership doesn't have to worry now about what the mood is in the marketplace, because they're going to have access to cash where they didn't have it before.
That means that AOPA should be able to find a bank willing to finance avionics, another that maybe likes small singles, and yet another that understands experimentals. And pilots will be dealing directly with AOPA for their financing.
We're going to be working with the members all the way from the very beginning through the end, walking them through the entire process, rather than handing it over, just referring the inquiries over to a lending institution.
So when people call, they'll actually be dealing with somebody right here at AOPA?
They'll be dealing directly with the AOPA people.
Right. You can learn more about the AOPA Aviation Finance Company by visiting aopafinance.com. You can also see my full interview on aopalive.org. Maybe you might use that new financing to get a new Bonanza. Beechcraft Corporation this week delivered number 4,000 of its Model 36 Bonanza. The Bonanza is the longest continuously produced aircraft in history. More than 18,000 Bonanzas have been built. Look for an upcoming pilot report on this G36 Bonanza, the very latest in the very long line. Sometimes what looks like fun and games has a serious purpose. If you're a CFI working with a tentative student, Dave Hirschman has a technique that turns fear of maneuvering into tiger-like confidence.
Bombs away. To turn a tentative pilot into a tiger, unfurl a roll of toilet paper and let him turn it into confetti before it hits the ground. Single ply paper makes the longest ribbons, and try to slice it with the wing. Here are a few tips to make it all work. Choose a remote location. Make sure the paper doesn't hit the airplane on its way out. Drop from a safe altitude, and don't chase the paper too low. Having a target makes formerly tentative students turn steeply and maneuver aggressively. And the best part is, they have a great time doing it. Dave Hirschman, AOPA Live.
And you can read more about this teaching technique on the new AOPA.org. The no-fuel airplane continues its solar-powered journey across America. Early Tuesday morning, Solar Impulse landed at St. Louis Lambert Airport after a 21.3-hour flight from Dallas. They picked STL to honor Charles Lindbergh and the pioneering spirit of St. Louis. Just days before the flight, storms had racked Lambert Field, damaging the hangar intended for Solar Impulse, so the team deployed an inflatable hangar to house the delicate bird. It should be no news to pilots that we are in the midst of thunderstorm and tornado season. And next week is the AOPA Air Safety Institute's Storm Week, with a special live webinar on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern.
We'll be joined by Andy Marasfari, who is an air traffic controller at the Boise Control Tower and an active general aviation pilot, which makes him doubly versed in what's going on both sides of the microphone. Right. So he's been with us several times and can give us some really good insights into how ATC looks at these things and how to keep out of trouble.
Of course, the Air Safety Institute has a ton of resources to help keep you out of storm trouble, including 3 online courses: Thunderstorms, ATC and You, Cockpit Weather, and an accident case study. You can find all the Institute's safety resources on the new AOPA.org. Just click on the Education tab. When we come back, if the worst happens, Rod Machado has some info on what you should do to help you survive. And we finish up our list of the top 10 stupid things pilots do to sabotage their medicals. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching AOPA Live this week. A bunch of aviation organizations, including AOPA, have asked Congress to continue paying for control towers. When the FAA said it was going to close control towers at general aviation fields as a cost-saving measure, Congress said, no, you don't. But that directive is only good until the end of the federal fiscal year in September. This letter asked the appropriation committees to make sure control towers funding continues through the next budget. AOPA has released an upgrade to its popular FlyQ Pocket app. Version 1.1 now features a quicker way to search for airports by city and state and allows pilots to file wind-optimized flight plans and offers weather briefings. More features as well, all added because of member feedback. FlyQ Pocket is available exclusively for members for iPhones, iPads, and Android-powered smartphones and tablets. A good pilot is always learning, we like to say, and one way to do that is to tap into the wisdom of other pilots. One group that helps to do that for instrument pilots is IMC Clubs International. The club founder, Radek Virkowski, dropped by AOPA headquarters this week to tell us more.
We call it organized hangar talk. And literally, it's, yes, we provide topic for discussion, and all those topics are submitted by our members. And those scenarios are 3 to 4 minute presentations. And the key is that we don't give any answers, because I strongly believe that in many cases there is no A, B, C, D answer. There is no one good answer that you can choose. There could be hundreds of them, and they all different, and they all good.
You can find out more about IMC Club International at imcclubs.org. It's not something any of us like to think about, but an off-airport landing is always a possibility. In this License to Learn, Rod Machado shows us how you can use the safety designed into your aircraft to increase the chances that you'll walk away from an unscheduled return to the ground.
Greetings, folks. I'm Rod Machado for AOPA Live. Suppose you had an engine failure and had to put an airplane down in an austere environment. And I'm speaking of a place with boulders, trees, poles, unoccupied vehicles, and so on. While there are many things you need to know to pull something like that off and minimize the risk, I'd like to share with you just one of them. Airplanes designed under Part 23 of the Federal Aviation Regulations require that cockpits be designed to give each occupant a reasonable chance of escaping serious injury if the cockpit experiences a maximum longitudinal load of 9 Gs in a forward direction. In other words, if you make an emergency landing and can manage to decelerate in such a way that you experience no more than 9 Gs, then the cockpit is likely to remain intact enough to help you escape without serious injury. So the question is, what's the minimum distance necessary in which to slow down, decelerate, and pull no more than 9 Gs? And to answer that question, we need a chart. And, oh, there's one. This chart shows the minimum distance required for uniform deceleration at various speeds so as to prevent the airplane from experiencing more than 9 Gs. For instance, with a ground speed of 50 knots, you need to slow down in no less than 12.3 feet. That's no less than 12.3 feet to keep the cockpit intact. Now keep in mind that Uniform deceleration means that the airplane's speed decreases proportionately throughout the entire distance, not all at once near the end of 12.3 feet, which is always what seems to happen to Wile E. Coyote in every Roadrunner cartoon. So what's the payoff for you if you do this? Well, let's have a look. In this example that happened 25 years ago, the pilot of this airplane attempted a takeoff in a fully loaded Cessna 172 on a high-density altitude day from a runway on this side of that brick wall. He managed to get over the brick wall and then entered the window of an unoccupied second-floor office building. Had he hit the side of that building, he would have decelerated so quickly that he would have surely experienced more than 9 Gs. Instead, in this instance, chance favored his unprepared mind. He and his 3 passengers walked downstairs where the secretary said, "Hey, how'd you guys get here?" And he allegedly replied, "We flew in." Well, looking closely at this picture, it appears that the distance between the nose of the airplane and the midpoint of the fuselage is about 13 feet. If we assume that he entered that window at 50 knots, then it's clear that the cockpit experienced less than 9 Gs during deceleration, thus perhaps explaining why all 4 people escaped without serious injury. Now, just to be clear, I use this as an example to make a point and not as a model for good behavior, heaven forbid. The fact is that during an emergency landing in unfriendly terrain, you want to try and land in such a way that the environment helps absorb the energy of impact. Remember, I'm talking about unfriendly terrain here. And this is what might allow you to decelerate slowly and experience no more than 9 Gs of deceleration, preferably much less. So thank you for tuning in to AOPA Live. I'm Rod Machado.
Good info, Rod. You can find out more from Rod Machado at his website, rodmachado.com. Ground Effect Advisors in Wheeling, Illinois has awarded some scholarships to start flying clubs. Zach Peidick of Wilmington, North Carolina got a scholarship to help start the Cape Fear Flyers. Ground Effect Advisors also surprised Chip Gentry, Jay Hahn, and Jeffrey Knott, who collectively submitted an application for a prospective flying club in Jefferson City, Missouri, with a $1,000 runner-up scholarship funded by AOPA. Helping flying clubs is part of AOPA's efforts from the Center to Advance the Pilot Community. You can learn more about the center on the new AOPA.org. Click on the Community and Events tab. Last week, Dr. Jonathan Sakier told about 5 stupid things pilots do to sabotage their medicals. This week, he rounds out the list to give the top 5.
Welcome back to the top 5 stupid things pilots do to sabotage their medical. Number 5. Many pilots view their medical with disdain, even hiding problems that might lead to loss of flight privileges. Common wisdom states that 1 in 4 adults will suffer from mental illness, and an astute AME will detect what you already know, and with a few probing questions, uncover depression. This will again lead to red ink, avoidable by seeing an appropriate physician when symptoms first appeared and then starting therapy. Number 4, if you smoke, stop. No smart person should smoke, and as pilots are smart, I hope none of you do. However, a smoking history might inspire several investigations that could lead to being grounded. If you're at risk of lung, heart, or vascular problems, see your regular doctor for a checkup. However, if your AME does find something abnormal, be grateful it was discovered. One pilot told me that her AME found evidence of disease in her neck arteries that led to surgery. The alternative could have been permanent grounding, as in 6 feet underground. Number 3, gut problems may affect certification. It's elementary, as Sherlock Holmes might have said. If your belly's misbehaving, get it sorted. Do not be one of the tens of thousands who contract colon cancer every year, an avoidable problem by having a screening colonoscopy. Report this at your next AME visit and keep flying well. Many other illnesses, therapies, and operations need not be disqualifying, but if you fail to disclose them and are later found out, there may be serious consequences. Number 2, The FAR aim prohibits the use of any drug that affects the person's faculties in any way contrary to safety. Between physicals, you may have been prescribed medications by another doctor without checking to see whether the FAA thinks that's a good idea. AOPA has an online database of medications to help you out. The organization strives to ensure thoroughness, but certainly tell the prescribing doctor you are a pilot, and if there's an issue, obtain an alternative, allowable therapy, reporting this to your AME. And the number one stupid things pilots do to sabotage their medical. Many problems detected at the visit are easily resolved with a test or two or a phone call. However, if you schedule your medical the last day of the month it's due, there's no wiggle room. Book an appointment earlier in the month. Your AME will definitely appreciate this, and if there is an issue, you may be thankful. There are many other potential pitfalls that might impede your certification, which is why AOPA developed Pilot Protection Services. If not already a member, I am, consider enrolling, and that way you can avoid sabotaging your medical.
Thanks, Jonathan. And that does it for this week. We hope to see you back here next Thursday. Remember that you can also watch AOPA Live this week by downloading from iTunes and on your big screen TV via Roku, Apple TV, or even YouTube. Thanks for watching. I'm Tom Haynes.